Now, before I start, sorry, Riley, I am going off topic just for a second. Hold your finger in that place. I know this message is for particular people here today, okay? Reason why I know that is because Friday, Jordan doesn't know this yet, I lost my laptop with my sermon in it on Friday morning, and I'm going, I know I had it Wednesday, I know I had it in the house, and I know I had it in the lounge room. Where has it gone? Remembering I have 2 children. So I'm going, okay, let's start looking around everywhere. So we did, Jason and I, we spent hours looking through the house, going through all of the kids' books in case it had been slipped in with a book, even getting to that, crazy stage where you're starting to open the ovens and things like that. Yep, trying to see if we could find it. No. So anyway, I kind of went, well, you know what, God, this is obviously a spiritual thing, so let's just trust that you've got this in hand. And if I have to rewrite it all on Saturday, I won't tell Jordan. But yes, I'm going to leave it in your hands because I trust that you have this in hand and I don't need to worry about it. Jason was still looking around a little bit because he was feeling for me, the poor thing. But I was trying very hard not to worry about it. So I went, okay, I'm going to ask Ollie when he first gets home from school at 3 o'clock and see if he knows where it might be. So I asked him and I said, Ollie, I need you to help me with something really important. I need you to help me find my laptop. He's like, yeah, okay, no worries, Mum. Okay, great. So we get home. He toddles off. I'm like, he's not actually going to be looking for the laptop. He's going to be doing something else. He's 5. He's going to get distracted by something. And what happens? He toddles back with my laptop. Now, Ollie, oh my goodness, I give him a big hug and I'm so thankful. And I say, oh, you're getting your new monster truck because you found Mummy's laptop. The bribes always work when you're trying to find stuff you can't find. So anyway, he comes back. I said, where did you find this? How did you know where to look so quickly? He says, oh, I saw Alec playing with it yesterday morning when we were getting ready for school, Mum. Alec is 2.5, okay? I'm going, oh goodness, what has he done with it and where did he leave it? He left it at the back of the rolled top desk underneath where you sit, up against the wall. We'd looked all through the drawers of the rolled top desk, we'd taken everything off, we'd gone through everything in the rest of the office, but we did not look underneath to the back wall. That is just to show you that this sermon really is for somebody in this place today because God tested my faith about this today, okay? So just keep that in mind. Okay, Riley, we're back to the written stuff now. Okay, today I'm following on from Pastor Jordan in our current series, this being the 3rd week in our series of Digging the Ditch of Faith. Isn't it funny that it happened to me on Friday? The past 2 weeks, Pastor Jordan has been taking us through trust and obedience. I'm glad I didn't get obedience, thank you. And now, today, we're looking at going through endurance. Now, who loves old movies? Yes, I know I do. I'm talking about John Wayne Westerns. Yes, Jordan, I'm one of those people. As if you couldn't see that coming. I love black and white films as well, like your Humphrey Bogarts, your Kirk Douglas, your Gregory Pecks. Love it. As soon as Jason walks in the room, though, all the kids, it's like, ugh, walk back out again. Jason likes the Westerns, don't get me wrong there, but anything else black and white, he's like, nah, I'm going to do something else. But the old movie I have in mind that I'm going to talk a little bit about this morning is not actually that old, but people my age think that it is. Who's seen The Castle? Yes, that's right. I'm about to say, there's lots and lots of great lines in that movie. Lots and lots. It's a classic movie. If you haven't seen it, please download it or find it in some sort of store that still sells DVDs. Now, while I was listening to Pastor Jordan in the first message, I could not get past Dale's famous one-liner in my head, Dad, I dug a hole. It's filling with water. Sometimes digging a hole doesn't go to plan, which is why we have businesses like Before You Dig. But this rings true for us too. When we're in a new season, sometimes things don't go as planned. Sometimes the season goes from fun and exciting to challenging and emotionally upheaving, sometimes our ditch of faith that we've started to dig starts filling with water. So, what does faith look like in this situation? Hebrews 11:1 says, "Faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see." Now, this has always seemed like a bit of a riddle to me when I've read it. Like, I have to read it a couple of times to really get it. But what we're going to focus on is the first part. Faith isn't only something that we have when life is going well. It actually only works when faith is going to poo. When life is going to poo. So, we can't see what's coming next. We don't know what we should do. That is when our faith ticks on. Faith is the reality of what we hope for. Today, we're going to be focusing on Hebrews 11:23 to 29, which is all about the life of Moses. So let's read together. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw that he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ of a greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith, he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. By faith, he kept the Passover and the application of blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land, but when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. Every one of us will experience challenges, whether it be health battles, financial troubles, business woes, know all about that one, relationship problems, either with our spouses or our families, the list goes on. So this message about endurance through hard times is for everybody. It's not one of those sermons where you're going to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs, because it doesn't really apply to me. When we look at the life of Moses, he just seems to go from one challenge to the next, doesn't he? Is your life like that sometimes? I know mine can feel like that sometimes. But what does it say in verse 27? It says he kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who was invisible. Moses kept his eyes on God. He kept going, he kept pushing, he kept leading. Even when his people said they were better off in Egypt, where they were slaves, than under the care of the Lord. Moses kept going. Have you had challenges in your life where you've just had to keep going and just trust that God will provide that next step? I know I have. You know, when Jason and I first got married back in 2015, boy, that sounds like such a long time ago. We were just married, no money and no jobs. We'd just moved back here from Adelaide, and we were living in a shed. A nice shed, but a shed. We did a little fruit packing, and that's not a fun job for any of those of us who have done that before. So I got out of that pretty quickly, and I went and worked at a piggery. Really wasn't that much better. I wanted to work on a farm again. I didn't want to be in front of a computer screen like I had been in Adelaide. So I thought this was perfect. I love animals, so you know. Parts of this season were good. On the early morning drives, I got plenty of opportunity to be able to look at beautiful sunrises and take some beautiful photos. And I also got to play with beautiful little piglets. And they are gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I was also the fittest that I've ever been in my life as well, which I could probably use a little bit more of these days. But for 2.5 years, I had 50-minute drive on a kangaroo and emu-infested road. I had multiple car accidents from that. I started at 6 a.m. every second week for farrowing, which is the birthing week. And very little breaks I would get all day. So start at 6 and I'd be lucky if I left at 4. And I'd be lucky if I had a sandwich to eat in my hand as I was going around. And that's not a place you want to be eating and doing stuff at the same time, okay? The amount of flies I ate, I don't even want to know about. The smell. My car was sold a couple of years later and it still smelled like pigs, even after air fresheners and all sorts going into it. I had to have multiple showers a day, so I just felt like I smelt normal. I probably didn't, for those of you who knew me back then, but at least I would have felt like I smelt normal. There were nights where Jason would roll over to give me a cuddle and roll back again, okay? And that's after having a shower because I would have some poo or something stuck in one of my ear folds. Like, it got everywhere, okay? And we're about to see that in a second. On top of all this, the pay was also terrible. Let's have that next picture, please, Riley. So the week after farrowing week was cleaning week. So that involves a pressure cleaner, pressure cleaning out all of the stalls. The stalls get covered in poop. So I got covered in it. This is in summer. The cute picture of the pink overalls, that's in winter where you actually want to be warm. In summer when you're working out in Taylorville and it's in the high 40s, near 50s, you don't want to be wearing anything you don't have to. So you get splattered with it, unfortunately. So I kept applying for new jobs because obviously I didn't want to do this one long term. 1/3 of my wage was going on fuel just to get there. And this is back then. This is in 2015 to halfway through 2018, right? Now that would be my full wage with what the petrol prices are. So I kept praying and I kept praying and I kept praying. We were low on cash. I'd injured myself at work. One of the pigs and the 200 kilos had fallen on me and broken, like not broken, but torn my meniscus in my knee. I didn't want to stay there, okay? I was really starting to struggle. So I kept praying and I kept hoping that something would break. Then after 2.5 years, finally, the job that God had been saving for me came available. It wasn't somebody else's job. It was a new position that had been created, working for a local organisation here in Berry, where I learnt a lot of the skills that I need today for the career that I have now. So I had to wait for that position to become available, all right? So, again, waiting on God's timing. All of us go through different trials in our lives. Some of them involve more endurance than others. Some of them involve poop, others don't. It doesn't matter who you are, you will experience trials. And like any form of endurance, whether it's running, riding, swimming, cycling, whatever, we start out strong, we're confident, we feel like we're up to the challenge ahead, and at least we know we have an arsenal of tools that we can use to help get us through, right? Usually we also have an idea of the timeline of the challenge that we're in, or we like to think we do. But what starts to happen? The hard hits. The leg burn starts, that deep burn that makes you want to pack it all in. But you push through the lactic acid buildup and you start to find it's getting that little bit easier, still challenging, but easier. This is just like when a new season starts for us. Whether we've invited the new season or not, we start out thinking we know what's coming, good or bad, and most of the time we know that we'll likely be fine, but that it's not going to be nice. We'll get through it, but it won't be nice. Then the unexpected happens. The challenge turns into something we did not expect. The hole starts filling with water, or keeps going much longer than we anticipated. Maybe your mental health also takes a hit at the same time, or a close family member passes away, or maybe you miss out on what you thought was the open door you were waiting on. This is the spiritual lactic acid buildup. This is the time that you want to quit, that you want to take over and do your own thing. And most of us do. We don't mean to, but we do. I don't know about you, but that's never worked out well for me. Anybody else worked out well? No. When we take over, When we take control of the decision making, the finances, the direction of the business, it never ends well, at least in my case. With 100% certainty, I can tell you that. The hard sucks. So my first point is, this sucks. What now? When everything seems like it's going wrong, and the easiest thing to do would be to forget about trusting God, forget about being obedient, take the steering wheel of your life and make it all better. Stop. This is the trap. The warning light's here. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And the trap is not just for young players, the inexperienced, or even expert level Christians, if they exist. Everyone falls into this trap. At least is tempted by it at some point. So this is not a shame on you, you've done this in the past sort of message. This is a this has happened to everybody message. Let's listen and see what we can do in the future. So put down any self-pity that you might be carrying. Put down any shame of what you've done in the past. And let's look at what we should be doing when the sucky part of our challenging trials comes. 1.1, fix your eyes on Jesus. Hebrews 12, 1-2 says, therefore, since we are surrounded by a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race that God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Easier said than done, hey? Yes. How do we keep our eyes on Jesus, though, when our lives feel like they're falling apart? Make the time you spend with God sacred. Don't let anything come between you and your time with God. Now, busy young mum, I work pretty much full-time hours, and I have 2 little kids that I look after. One, thankfully, now is off to school, but the other one I have with me pretty much all the time. That time that I spend with God, that has to change what time of day that is every day, but it has to fit in somewhere. If you start to compromise the time that you spend with God, your eyes will fall away quicker than you can order McDonald's online, okay? It will happen very quickly if you are under a lot of spiritual pressure. Point 1.2, remember God's faithfulness. During these sacred times that you spend with God, don't just sit there and randomly open your Bible expecting divine intervention. Read about the different characters that relied on God's faithfulness. Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Elijah, Moses, Joshua, even some New Testament people like any of the disciples. Read Acts. Read about any of the other people of God in the New Testament. Think back in your own life. Remember times that God has been faithful for. And even others around you, how God has been faithful. And point 1.3. Trust in God's sovereignty. Now, that's a big word. What does sovereignty mean? It means this: supreme or ultimate power, and that he is king. Trust in God's ultimate power. Trust was the theme that Pastor Jordan started this series on. It is easily broken. Trust is easily broken. All of us will know that in this room. We will have all had a trust broken at some point. It takes time to build. But if we do these 3 steps in order, your sacred space, remembering God's faithfulness in our lives and others, biblical and personal, that trust starts to build again. Now just remember that God will never fail you. People do. Systems do. But God never will. And he will never leave you. We can't put God in the same box as other people and other things that we've trusted that have hurt us. God is sovereign, all-powerful, and king. So if you don't feel like you can trust anybody, you can trust God. So even with our eyes back on Jesus, how do we continue through the hard, through the sucky, and through the challenges that seem never ending? How do we do that while trusting God and not giving up? My point 2 this morning is called Tools to Dig Your Ditch. As you can see, I have some tools. All right, you're already tired. You're sore. You have blisters, but you have your eyes on the prize. You have your eyes on Jesus. Like Moses said in verse 26, he was looking ahead to his great reward. You have your sacred time, which is fueling you, both with rest and time, but also resourcing you to continue through your challenge. But what else can you do that helps us not only to survive this challenging time, but to grow stronger, more knowledgeable, and ultimately more like Jesus through all these experiences? Now, going back to our theme, digging holes is something I am pretty well versed at. My parents live on a farm about 5 minutes from One Tree Hill in Adelaide. And fencing is something that we found ourselves doing fairly often and not by choice. Now, where my parents are is not like here. Where I live in Winky, it has lovely, soft sand. It's actually pretty good. Where my parents are in Adelaide, rocks. Can we see the next slide, please, Riley? So I'm not talking little rocks. I'm talking boulders. There's another one there too, Riley. This is the side of the hillside. That's at One Tree Hill Road, down, that little bit there. We can see a little bit of grey. That's standing on the side of the hillside. So it's like this, okay? If you're going to climb up the hill, you better bring a board to go shoom back down again, because you're going to end up on your bum as you're going back down anyway. Now, there is dirt and grass, as you can see, but this concealed a very rocky and very clayey nightmare, because their soil is limestone with boulders, so it's clay and yuck. So I got pretty good at using these tools: a sledgehammer, a shovel, which we really didn't get to use as much as you'd think, and a crowbar. Now, this crowbar is heavy. I might make it look easy, but when you're having to swing this and break rocks and lever things, it is heavy, okay? It is hard work. This is only a little one too, by the way. There's bigger ones. My dad has a big one. That's hard. So I thought that I would be a little clever and use these tools, which Jordan didn't have the last 2 weeks, to be able to help illustrate digging ditches if you haven't had to do it before. Now, digging ditches is hard work, like living a life of faith. But how we use these tools to help us break through the hard, break through the challenges, that is what we're looking at now. So, first off, we have the shovel. The shovel represents God's word. When we're going through a season where we're enduring hardship or waiting for answers, his word is what we need to be digging into. You might be saying, you already talked about reading God's word. You know what? I'm saying it twice because it's doubly important, okay? Slide 19, please. Yes, that's it. Psalm 119, 105 says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. And Matthew 11:28 says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. So if you're looking for rest while you are going through your challenge, read your Bible. Dig deep into his word. Do a word study or a character study of someone who's been waiting on the faithfulness of God and received it. There's plenty of characters in the Bible to choose from. God speaks to us through his word. He soothes our anxieties, and he brings comfort through his presence. Second, we have the crowbar. I'm not going to hold that one up the whole time. That's too heavy. This is used to lever big rocks out of your hole. Yes, I had plenty of those on that hillside where you can't literally get your shovel in or anything else to be able to get these rocks out. And there's rocks everywhere, so you can't just go, I'll just dig a hole somewhere else. That doesn't work like that. You've actually just got to keep going where you've started. The crowbar today is representing the church, your spiritual community. We weren't meant to do this life alone. We weren't meant to go through these challenges of life by ourselves, thinking we can handle everything on our own. God created us to be in community with one another, to support one another, to lift one another up when we fall, and to help when crisis hits. So use this community that God has given us, this church, to help you lift those boulders, to help shift them, to support you as you go through your hard seasons. This church is strong. This church is for you, and this church is here to support you. There are prayer warriors in this church that will literally go into spiritual battle for you, but we need to know about it. You need to pick up the crowbar. You need to tell us that you're going through trials and let us pray with you. I mean, look at Brian Huckle. He's been in spiritual warfare this week. He's got a black eye. No, not really. He had surgery. He's all good. But really, there are people that will go into spiritual battle for you. Okay, you do not need to do this on your own. So use this amazing supportive tool that God has created for us. And third, the sledgehammer. Sledgehammers are used to smash through the really big rocks, to smash them into more manageable pieces, either to lever out with your crowbar or your shovel. Using a sledgehammer is hard work. It's all hard work, let's face it. But this one sends shockwaves through your body when you hit hard things. That's why the sledgehammer is today representing praise and worship. Now you might be thinking, that is not where I thought she was going with this. I thought she was going to give me something more challenging or something that I don't already do. Well, you're wrong. But today, praise and worship is actually one of the most powerful tools that you have that you may not realize. You don't need a band. You don't need to be able to hold a tune. You don't even need music. Praise and worship comes from in here. You may not know this, but kings used to send out their musicians, their minstrels, before their army, because praise and worship really is warfare. And just like Nicole said this morning, the other thing that is worship is our tithing. So if you're having financial troubles right now and you want to know what you can do about it, how you can worship God and still be living a life of faith and using it as a spiritual tool, tithe, even if it hurts, tithe, because you will see that God will repay you tenfold. There are many people in this room I see nodding at me going, yes, because they have gone through that. I am one of them. So if you're having financial troubles, worship God with your finances. It is a spiritual thing, okay? It is a worship thing. When we worship and we really let go of ourselves, I'm not talking about just kind of standing there and singing. When you are literally just in God's presence and letting yourself go, not thinking about anybody else in the room, we can feel Him around us, moving through us, speaking through us. Some of us get it in the form of tongues. He speaks to us as we worship. But what I personally love most of all is when I worship, I feel like I'm not alone. I can feel Him with me. Even if I'm not getting answers to my problems, there's a mental and an emotional release that I personally cannot and have not received in any other way. Worship especially softens our hearts and our minds so that we can hear from God more clearly. It prepares our hearts for either a new challenge or a continuing one. It reminds us of God's faithfulness, His love and His grace for when we get it wrong. Can you play Miracle Worker, please? Thank you. Now, not only this, but when we worship, the devil and his angels flee. He can't stand you worshiping God. He can't stand you praising His name. So if there's any aspect at all that you think of your troubles as spiritual, you should be worshiping all the time. Have worship music on in the background at all times if you can. Worship in your car. Worship with your headphones on. Worship wherever you're going. Read books that are about God and about worship, because you do not want the devil or his angels anywhere near you. You do not want that spiritual warfare in your life. Worship is so much more powerful than we think. It is so much more powerful than lyrics and words and music. That is not all that spiritual, that actual worship is. So these tools that God has given us to sustain us through life's challenges, we can go through seasons that really do require an enduring faith. Times of grief, of loss, of hardship, and of pain, and any other hard that you've gone through. These are the tools to get us through. Not celebrities and their opinions, not whiz-bang gurus, not drugs, not alcohol, not a new life partner, and not a new child. Please don't do that one. Another child does not necessarily fix your problems. None of these things, or any things that this fallen world can provide, will help you get through these sucky times like God can. Moses had God guiding him and speaking to him when he was speaking with Pharaoh, when he needed the Red Sea to open to keep Israel safe from the Egyptians. And through all the trials that he faced with the people of Israel, constantly trying to go back and do their own thing, Moses had God. Now, like Moses, if you want to continue reading about him, you can find the story of Moses starting in Exodus chapter 2. I've said many times when I've been preaching that Moses is probably my favorite Bible character because he's a lot like me. I fight with God a lot. So did Moses. He complained a lot to God. So do I. And that's what I'm going to quickly finish on today. Moses gave every excuse under the sun, saying that I'm not the right person, I can't do this, when God was talking to him at the burning bush. And God put him in his place. If you want to read that story, go ahead. It's early Exodus. Now, Moses hadn't even started on his season of hard yet, and he was already complaining with God. But this is actually something that God has designed us to do, okay? This is a feel-good bit for this morning, all right? God has designed us to complain, to lament. To lament means to feel sorrow, grief, and complain. Yes, God is giving you permission to complain. Lament is taking our hard emotions and questions to God and then choosing to trust his faithfulness. It's two-sided. It's not just complaining, but it's also believing in his faithfulness. Lament helps us to turn to God first for comfort before going to anyone or anything else. Lament deepens our intimacy with God as we let our hard questions and hard emotions surface with him. After all, he knows our thoughts and feelings, so there's no reason to hold them back from him. And lament helps us to unburden our overloaded heart and overwhelmed soul when it's too hard to handle. Lament is always available. In each new wave of grief, each new question, and every aching night on a tear-stained pillow. No one else may truly understand how you feel or what you're going through, but God does. God, who made our emotions, who knows how to walk us through them. Friends, counselors, and our church community are vital resources as we process our challenges and walk through them. But in the end, God is our comfort. He is where the healing is. So 3 core truths to remember as I finish. Your suffering has purpose. Trials are not meaningless. They're used by God to refine your character. Number 2, God's grace is sufficient. When you reach the end of your own strength, you are in a position to rely on his strength, which is made perfect in our weakness. And 3, that this is just a chapter. It's not the end of your story.